Oh man, I'm a little nervous for this one. Hi, welcome. This is Curatorial Knits, a knitting podcast all about the decisions that we make and the aesthetic pleasure that we get from knitting. My name is Lily and I'm an art curator by day and a ferocious knitter and now pattern designer by night. I live in Northern California with a hilarious husband and two super inspiring kiddos, and now a new puppy as well. And today is super exciting. I am launching my very first garment sweater pattern, and it has been a long time coming, and this has just been a really wonderful journey that so many of you viewers, if you have been here before, have been on. So thank you so much for being here again or for the first time. Welcome. It's going to be a really fun episode. I have so much to talk about, a little bit of life updates, and then I have a deep dive that I want to do a little bit at the end into color and colorwork choices. And I would really love your input and feedback all along the way. All of the details about the pieces I'll be discussing will be in the drop-down box below in the description box, and also down there you'll find the comment section. We have such an amazing community here in our comments, and I'm just always constantly impressed and inspired by the discussions that happen there. So please do check that out and say hello and maybe meet a new knitting friend there as well. Okay, so this has definitely been the week of the yellow fluff in my life. I am wearing a new finished object. This is the t-shirt version of the Curator Sweater. And we also welcomed a beautiful fluff ball of puppy into our house over the last week as well. And I have to say, I knit this tee in about a week during the time that he was here, and it was so much chaos and so much joy and so much fun. So I'll put a few pictures up here so you can kind of see what the last few days of my life have been like. A little bit chaotic, but we're embracing the chaos. We're saying yes to life, and we just had to, this kind of opportunity just really fell in our laps, quite literally. The puppy landed in my kiddos' laps when we were visiting a family friend, and next thing you know, he's here. He's with us. Puppy's name is River, and he is a delightful addition to the crew. He's also a lot. He's kind of what we used to call my toddlers, a lot of person in a little body. Now that my kiddos are no longer toddlers, we have a very similar energy, though. It's an energy we are familiar with and delighted by, and also sometimes exhausted and completely run down by. So it is everything all at once. I have a friend who called May Maycember recently, just because it feels like there's so many events, and especially if you have family or young people in your life, the school stuff just like really packs it in and condenses towards the end of the year in May. So we're dealing with all of that. Okay, I guess I did life update stuff first. Sorry. What I really want to be talking about right now is the launch of this pattern, the Curator Sweater, and how amazing the kind of lead up to this has been. I will kind of go into a few details. This is how it's going to go down. I'm going to talk about the first version of the sweater. I'm going to talk about the first sample, rather, the second sample, which I knit for my husband, and then I'll talk about this third sample and what I'm wearing right now. I'll talk a little bit about the testing process and like errors and what happens when something goes wrong, and then what happens when it all works out as well. And then I will spend a little bit of time talking about kind of like some bigger picture stuff and what this process has meant for me in terms of not like in any personal or professional way at all, but just like in a bigger kind of meaningful way, how I've felt so much more connected to kind of things outside of myself. And then I'll have a big thanks and a little bit of a big ask as well. And then we're gonna get into a conversation about color. So the thing that I hear the most probably in the comments from you guys is really these beautiful acknowledgments, and I'm so grateful for these compliments about the color choices that I make. And so given that I'm going to be casting on my first Colorwork design sweater in hopefully the next week or two, once I have those numbers finalized for my sample size, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the decisions I'm trying to make right now in the moment about my color choices, what that might look like, and what I've learned from all the Colorwork sweaters that I've made before. We're not gonna go through all of my Colorwork sweaters. I just pulled ones that I thought had something, like a big learning that I took away from them, or something that really did work or something that didn't really work. So that's how we'll kind of finish up. And then it'll be all the whips next time. And yeah, so let's get started. I am so delighted to be wearing, I'll talk about this last, but first off, let's talk about the OG, the Curator Sweater, my first knitting pattern. I think the hat was my first knitting pattern, that's right. But this really felt like the garment is just it's so another level in every way. Like I just like even formatting the PDF, like it was so important to me to have like the cable chart next to, like, all on the same page with the time that you first start doing the cable with those instructions. Like I wanted a different page with the, you know, left side cable and what that looks like and all the instructions for that. Like that's something I never would have thought about with a hat pattern, for example. Like for me, this really is kind of from the very beginning to the very end, like the very first cast on stitches to, you know, pushing the final save button on the PDF when it was done. Like every single step along the way is just like 10x what I kind of, not necessarily what I anticipated, but definitely like anything I had done before. And so the Curator Sweater is a top-down, mostly in the round, European shoulder design. So it starts with this back panel here, and you knit a little trapezoid, boop, 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 and then you stop. And then you pick up on the backs of the shoulders. So you're actually making what I call shoulder bands that come up and over your shoulder. And you get pretty far, and you do a few increases. And then you pop on over and you pick up the top of your shoulder cap. And for me, this is like the key, because like shoulder fit is so important. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to make my own sweater pattern in the first place, because I believe really deeply in both size inclusivity, but also in the power that comes from something being well fitted to your body, and giving you space and room to move. So once that shoulder cap is complete, or not complete, is picked up rather, then you're basically just knitting a raglan and you're off to the races. You have stitch markers in the right place, you know where you are. There are different rates of increase for different sizes, and that is one of the things I find most powerful about the pattern, and where my tester feedback has been so extraordinary. I have had testers from size 1 all the way through size 11, but I will also say, and I'll mention this at the end too when I give all the details about the logistics for the pattern, I only had a single tester for the largest size. So if you would like to make that size, I would be more than happy to share the pattern with you for free. You can reach out to me on Ravelry, that's the easiest way to do it, or just DM me on Instagram, any way you want to get in touch. I would love to be able to share the pattern with you for free, because I did only just have one tester for the largest size. But what's so cool about this shoulder construction and the different rates of increase is that we were able to get a really well-fitted sweater across this size range. I really want to credit to the help I got from my tech editor and grader, who helped me with the cadence of some of those increases, particularly as we got into the larger sizes and making sure that we weren't going to have excess fabric in kind of a a funky spot. I'm really, really excited about the success that my testers had with this construction and with this fit. It is by far the #1 comment that I've gotten back. And I have like saved all the little screenshots from the feedback form. We had 31 testers, and I'm so grateful for that feedback, but also just for folks like trusting the process and being alongside with me through that. I really feel just such an affinity for my testers and for all of the work that we really were able to do together. So once that raglan shaping is done, you split for sleeves, and the split for sleeves is a little bit funny. One of the things I did hear in the feedback too was that people were like not so sure this was all going to work out because you only cast on a couple stitches underneath because you already made the fabric for the sleeve almost entirely at that point. But trust the process. Trust the process. I also, according to the feedback from both the video I posted last and of course my testers, is I've moved the collar section up. So I recommend before that sleeve split, you can even just put the stitches on hold and get ready to go, but come back up to that top, knit your collar, and then try it on and make sure that you love that fit. I will talk a little bit when I'm talking about this third version about the collar I did here with some little eyelets, because you know I got super into my ribbed eyelets with my, what's it called, Alpenbloom last time. But I do think this folded over collar makes such a beautiful clean line. I did not use elastic in this one, and I've worn it so much that I might, before the winter comes, put some in. But if you want it to have a little bit more structure, you can always do that. I quite like how this dips down. I think it's really elegant, and it also shows how, not exaggerated, but how much of a difference it makes to have a really proper back-fitting sweater. Then you just go around and around and around, and you're off to the races. We keep, in the pattern, you keep just one purl line all the way down the front of the sweater. A number of my testers continued the cable all the way down the front, and that also looks really dreamy, super pretty. I really like the structure that both of those choices make, but you can also always remove it as you prefer. And that's the construction. So this was the first version, which I completed in January. It has twisted rib, which I know is kind of like not everyone's favorite thing, but it's so pretty. I just think it makes such a difference in those clean lines. So this is sample 1. This is knit in Sonder Yarns Sport Luxe, and it is super luxe. I chose this yarn because of its drape and its hand. I absolutely adore it. It's one strand of that Sonder Luxe and one strand of their mohair, and this was the color Personal Space, which I've had a number of people reach out to me and already say that they've already ordered. I think they chose well. I love this. It goes with everything. It looks great with blacks. It looks great with light neutrals like beiges and whites. It also looks amazing with navy and, of course, jeans, which is super fun. So after my first sample, I really wanted to do a couple things with my second. The first thing that I wanted to make sure my second sample achieved was make sure I was knitting it alongside my testers. I'd heard other YouTubers and knitwear designers talk about that process, and I thought that was going to be a really important part of it, and I think it was, to really be in the pattern and reading it, knitting a different size, reading it as a consumer almost, alongside my testers. And yeah, that was super effective. I'm really glad that I did that. The other thing I wanted to do was make something nice for my husband. So I did, and he quite likes it, which makes me super, super happy. He has these really lovely blue eyes and wanted a super basic sweater. So he was either gonna do just black or navy, and what we ended up with though, which I adore, is one strand of the black with one strand of navy, and it is stunning. So the black is the Sonder Sport Luxe, and then the navy is the mohair. So the halo that you're getting off that is from the blue mohair, but there's this like real density of and highly saturated black underneath it. So it really feels like hearty. And this was such a great experience. I'm so glad I went for it. I did add elastic to his. You can see I still have to snip the little end off. And I think the dip on him is so perfect because it has a little bit of room. He's tried it on over like a collared shirt, and it looks perfect. It looks so good. I eliminated the cables for him just because, for a couple reasons. Frankly, the yarn is so dark, I thought it was going to be really hard to read. I actually had them in for quite a bit, and then I ended up ripping most of the one side all the way back that I had almost finished, just because it was hard to read. It looked a little messy, and I thought it was good to show the flexibility of the pattern. And this is even before I went a little nutty with the flexibility idea. So super simple, but I did keep the purl line because I think the structure makes such a kind of nice impact, and it goes all the way down. And then this was the part where I was like the biggest error, like it was a mistake. And for some reason, on my first version, it worked out perfectly. There were an odd number of stitches in between the two purl bumps. So the purl bump runs in super elegantly, runs into the ribbing. So it's just one line all the way down. But in the pattern, the way that I had written it, I had like this original cast on when you kind of connect the two sides after the increases. I had an even number of stitches there, which of course would not work with the ribbing. So that was like, and at first I was like, this can't be wrong. And I was like, ooh, it is wrong. And like, God bless my testers. 2 people caught it, like basically on almost the same day. And so we were able to make a solution for them. And then the pattern itself is of course all right as rain. And they were also very early birds to figure it out. So I was so grateful for that. And I think now that it is fixed, there's also this wonderful confidence that I have that like I know it's right. You know, that like I don't know, it's such a good feeling to be like, yes, this works, I nailed it. And so when I got down to my version, even though I knew it was correct and I knew I had cast on an odd number and I knew I was like completely good to go, when I got here and had that like super satisfying moment of just like having the purl bump run into the ribbing, no problem, I was like, yes, it happened. It all came together, and that was great. So I thought these were just going to be the only 2 samples that I made. I think it goes without saying that you know, larger sizes take more time, and I was delighted to be able to kind of finish this off. And then I had 2 other sweaters that I finished, we talked about last time, and so I really was just gonna like focus on this and finish it off, and you know, maybe cast on some of my Colorwork swatches that I was working on. That was my main focus. And then what happened? Sorry, dramatic pause while I get my coffee. I'm using my Huana, is that it? Yeah, Hanua pottery. I love this cup, and honestly I picked it out from the cupboard because I was like, it's gonna look so good with my yellow fluff. Okay, so dramatic pause over. What happened next? I'll tell you. Sorry, there's some construction on the street. My testers started making multiples. And we had talked in our Zooms because we had 2 amazing Zoom conversations. One of my testers in the Zoom said, we could make it a tee. And I said, yes, we absolutely could. I love that mod. Like thinking in my head, oh, I should work on that. Like, I don't know if I'll have time to put it into the pattern before release, but like maybe I can add it later, because I know you can do like a pattern update where you like add certain things to it, because I get updates through Ravelry all the time, and I'm sure I could just email the people who buy things on Etsy and just say, you know, here's an updated version of the pattern. It's like, oh yeah, great idea. Did I think any more about it? Yeah, I thought it was kind of I was noodling on it. What happens next? They start popping them out. I have the most amazing testers on the planet, and they just start whipping out these t-shirts. And I was like, well, I guess I'm making a t-shirt in 10 days then. And that's what I did. I am obsessed. I love the tee version. They look so good, and because of the shoulder fit, you're able to do some pretty interesting things. And of course, because of the bust darts and waist shaping modifications, which are all already in the pattern. Like everything you need to do this is in the same pattern as this. And this is like how I did it. So basically, it's the same yoke. I have added a whole section on modification options for this section. So you can either do the cable that's written in the pattern, you can do nothing or just a purl bump. You can also insert your own lace options. I have another amazing, amazing tester, Jackie, thank you, who put in a lace and cable motif into hers, which is absolutely unreal, so beautiful. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely doing lace. I want it to be kind of a lot of lace. I want it to feel really airy. So should I talk about? Yeah, so anyway, I made like whole panels, like basically where the whole section here was lace. That didn't work out so well, so I tore that back. And instead, I made mine with just this little eyelet rib. There's a little bit of a twist here. So it's technically like a lace pattern. And I love it. I also continued it all the way down the side of the tee. I'll put some photos up of me wearing it. And this is so fun. It's like a revelation. I have worn this thing. I mean, it's like, it was wet 2 days ago and I've worn it every day since. Like it was on blocking mats and I'm still, like, I'm obsessed. I love wearing it. I also like completely jumped on the butter yellow bandwagon. This is quite a bright butter yellow, but it's still like pale enough that I think we qualify. And yes, I'm always superstitious if like I'm into something that's also has its own section on like fast fashion websites. Like I think Zara right now has put out like a million different things in butter yellow, but I don't care because I love it. I love it so much. And I've also realize I don't have any other yellow objects in my wardrobe. And so I went for it. So how should I talk about this? So first, I'll talk about the size, because while my first size is a size 3, this was the original size for me, which has 4 inches, more like almost 5 actually. This is all in the pattern. This has 4.75 inches of positive ease on my body at the trunk. And it is absolutely drapey, open, really easy to kind of move in. I love it. And this was the intention of this, was an oversized knit sweater. But the joy of this pattern, which I made, which is still crazy to me, is that because there's these different metrics for fit on my sizing chart, I thought, why don't I pick one more size down for my like chosen knitting size, but then add a size in my bust shaping. So again, this is a size 3 with size 1 of bust shaping, which is down here. You can hardly see it, but it's so cute. And this is a size 2 sweater with size 2 bust shaping. So what that's able to do is make sure that I have plenty of room in the bust. It's super flattering, but it never feels tight. It doesn't feel tight in the chest, and it doesn't feel tight under the arms. And for me, this is chef's kiss, just the best. And it was so fun too to like discover another side of this pattern and to just see people's inspiration just start like popping off. This is, again, I think I knit this in like 10 days, and that includes the 10 days I had a puppy for the first time in my life. So it's definitely a quick knit, and the gauge is still, 20 stitches. It just completely flew by. The choices that I made for the ribbing are also different. This is also all in the pattern. I have, one of the testers used the ribbing from a free t-shirt pattern on Ravelry. I liked hers, but it was a little long for me, so I changed mine up, and I included let's see the best way to put this. I basically just did twisted rib, and then 1 round of purl, 2 rounds of stockinette, and then bound off. So it creates a really nice little ridge here, and it looks like it's a bit of a rolled hem, but it's not. It's like a faux rolled hem. For the ribbing on the collar, I really wanted to integrate the yarn overs and eyelets from my lace section here. And so I just did a round of yarn overs within the purl bumps at the very edge, knit 1 round, and then bound off here. And then at the hem, boo-de-boo, I did the same as the sleeves. I thought about doing yarn overs at the hem too, and on the sleeve to like add more lacy open work interest, but I felt like I didn't really need it, and I liked the crisper edge that this gave. I think it might be a little kind of wavy maybe at the bottom if I tried that. So I didn't. I have not talked about the yarn. Okay, so this is one of those things where I absolutely fixated on an ideal color of yellow and then went a little bit nuts on the internet. And I also knew that I wanted something very lightweight. And I really, really loved, where is it? The Pika Pika yarn from Moondrake, which is that light blue color that I really want to make another one of these in. And it turned out that Moondrake didn't have a yellow that like was the exact yellow I was thinking of because how could they read my mind? But then I was looking at their archive, and it turned out they did. So I emailed the yarn company and just said, hello, could I order 4 skeins of this? And they said yes. And the next thing I knew, Lemon Drop was in my lap. So this is also a choice. I'm very happy with the outcome, but I think that I would like to try, if I were going to do it again, I don't know, maybe I would do it again. So basically I ordered the same combination that I had from Moondrake in the other color. So it was 1 strand, I wanted to do 1 strand of the Pika Pika, which is a linen merino silk, blend, and then 1 strand of their fuzzy yarn, which is a very light fuzz, and it has cashmere and merino. So that's what I ordered. In knitting it, I thought this would be really beautiful in just the Pika Pika held double. And I also have ordered the knitting for Olive cotton merino in red, which I think I would use just held double. That's what one of my testers used, knitting for Olive cotton merino. It looks perfect. It like super crisp, super lovely. Because the Fua Fua has such a thin core, this is definitely, like you can see, the stitches are a lot more open. That said, I think I really like that because I'm still getting that 20 stitch gauge, right? It's so light and airy. It is not hot at all, which was my worry while I was making it a little bit. I was like, is this gonna be like too much of a fuzz fest? Because the fuzz is so freaking luxe, there's not any sort of itch factor. And, I think I could wear this up until it's probably 80 and be super happy and delighted to be wearing it. And because that's kind of my climate, It's somewhere in between 65 and 78, like every day here almost. I think for me it was absolutely the right choice. So yes, this is my yellow fluff, which goes so well with the other yellow fluff that just came into my life. And I'm so happy to have them both with me. I wanted to talk a little bit, I mentioned the bust darts. I also did, oh, I don't think I mentioned though, I did waist shaping. So I did 2 rounds of waist shaping on this as well, which is super subtle, but I think creates that nice effect. And with these 3 samples, what I've done in the pattern is I've made an entire kind of page that's dedicated to ease guidance. So listing the 3 samples, the first one, which has nearly 5 inches of positive ease with me and my body. The second one, that navy one, on my husband, I knit it for him to give him 2 inches of positive ease on his body. And then this has about 1 inch of positive ease on my body. And I go into all of the specifics of kind of how to measure for your ease and how to use that to pick your size. So I think it's super, like, it kind of gives a visual representation for these ideas, which like sometimes are hard to hold on to a little bit. So I hope that's really helpful. In terms of fit and what that means to folks, I also wanted to share a little bit about what has made this process so special and kind of taken it to this other level for me. And so I'm going to share something with you. And yeah, one of my testers just out of the blue wrote me a note. The subject line was just like her size. And so when I first opened it, I was like, oh no, something's wrong with this size. And it turned out to be a really thoughtful and inspiring email. And I asked her if I could share portions of it, and she actually says in the email that she'd like to share this if it might be helpful for others. So I am going to share it now. She says, "Hi Lily and hello. I'm just getting into my bust darts for my sweater. Things are going really well, and honestly, the best fit of anything I've ever made. You've done such an amazing job with this. Thank you very much." Sorry, this is like kind of embarrassing to say out loud. Then she goes on. At the risk of sharing too much information, a couple of years ago, I had a single mastectomy and I'm still awaiting my reconstruction. So when I buy and knit clothes, I wear a prosthesis and fit to this. However, due to the amazing construction of your pattern, I think it would be very easy to adapt the pattern so it genuinely fits me in all my, she says wonky, but I say glory. I am going to carry on so that I can knit this properly for the test, but I'm going to start another so that I do make one that fits me fully for the days. If it could be useful to share what I do with this, I'd be very happy to do so. So many things in this email that really hit me hard. The first is there's some people in my life, like very close to me, who have also gone through this process. It is really, really challenging, and I just want to kind of hold space for that. Also, that our bodies are so personal, and knitting is a practice of taking care of, if we're knitting for ourselves or for others, taking care of bodies, right? Offering protection and offering style and kind of just celebrating these physical vessels that we get to inhabit every day. And being thoughtful about like fit, or giving folks options in how they want to make something that fully celebrates exactly who they are and the body that they have, is a big deal. And I feel like I didn't totally understand that, and I didn't appreciate that as much until I started this process. And then when I received this email, it really just took my level of gratitude just to the next level, both for our own understandings of each other, the compassion that we can have for ourselves, and then also the fact that, you know, this knitter wrote to me because they felt they could share their experience with others and that it might help somebody else. And that spirit of generosity and that spirit of care and thinking of others, and again, there's just such joy in that generosity, and it's something that is so part of our everyday lives. And I think the more that we uplift that and uphold that and honor that support and care for others, the better off we'll be. And so even though it's, you know, just a silly sweater pattern, it also has been a process that's really awakened me and alerted me to these much bigger and larger themes. So I just want to say thank you again to the amazing support from my test community, especially this person in particular. I'm so glad they're happy with their garment. I'm so glad it meant so much to them. And I'm also so proud that it's something that can fit different people at different times in their lives. And yeah, so I'm really happy with the way this is all worked out. I will also say just big thanks to this YouTube community. It is so special, and I'm very grateful to you all. And I'd also like to ask a very big ask from you guys. Even if you are not interested in knitting this pattern at all, if you could still look in the description box as I'm talking, it's fine. You don't even have to push pause, and open the link to the Ravelry page and either give it a heart or just even opening the link. That would mean so much to me, and I really believe in this pattern. I really want it to make an impact, and it would mean a lot to me to have your support with that process. So thank you very much. And I know it's kind of totally unfair to not take you through works in progress, but I think this next section is going to be really helpful. So I will just take a moment to, let me see if, I just want to make sure I went through all of my notes. I think I'm missing something. Oh, yes, I am missing something. Do you guys want to do a cal? It could be a T-cal maybe, or the full sweater, whatever people want to do. Would you let me know in the comments if you would like to do a Curator Sweater cal? If so, I have some people I will ask for some prizes that could be very fun, and I think we should do it. I think it would be really great. So let me know if we have, you know, enough of a crew. We'll start a, I really liked having the Instagram group chat for my testers. It's not where we gave our actual feedback on the pattern. That happened separately, but it was more kind of breezy and chatty. And I think that could be really fun for a cal too. It would just mean, like, you know, you can turn your notifications off for the chat, so you're not getting like people's, you know, random blurt outs at 2:30 in the morning because they live in a different time zone from you. But it's really fun to be able to share photos that way. So if you're interested, go to the comment section and let me know, because if we do have a critical mass, I would love to start one up for the summer. I have, oh my gosh, so many versions I want to make. I want a gray and navy striped version. I saw a like navy and gray striped dress recently, and I just instantly was like, that's a Curator sweater. Done. And then I have that red Knitting for Olive cotton merino tee I want to make in it. And then the other thing I really want to make is a oversized, like this amount of ease, you know, oversized V-neck cardigan with the same construction and potentially the same detailing. So I don't know when I will design that, but I really want to make it. I really want to make it. There just aren't enough hours in the day, honestly. So yeah, let me know your kind of, not homework, your tasks. My like deep requests are, check out that description box for the Ravelry link for the Curator sweater, and then let me know in the comments if you'd like to do a Curator sweater cal. Those, now I know I've covered everything I wanted to with this bad boy. And now we can talk color work. So the color work pattern that I, or chart, I should say, that I am working on, it's not 100% finalized, but I'd say it's like 80% there. I want to make sure works in 3 or 5 colors. That's my goal. I love the kind of dynamism of color work, both in terms of the process and the product. And what I'm going to do right now is walk you through some of my Colorwork sweaters and talk about both how I selected the colors within the garment and what I may or may not have learned from that process. And I thought that would be a really fun way to kind of get into it and also get me inspired for my next cast on. So the first one I wanted to bring up, this is the, oh my gosh, Junko. It's a Junko Okamoto pattern. Is it acorns? No, plums. Oh man, I'm so sorry. It will be in the description box below. But I used the inspired by Ellen Cal motif. So this was a cal that was really about using this motif anywhere you wanted. What did I learn from this process? I would say this is like a successful outcome sweater. I really enjoy wearing it. I think that the color choices I made were very effective. I wanted to talk about placement. So as you can see, there's like very high contrast on the white from both the blue and the brown. These are all on our Air Newton colorways that have very beautiful colorway names, which I am not using. I will use the color names white, blue, and brown just to kind of be clear. So clear for English speakers like myself. So I'm gonna try to hold this up here. My arms are really sore, you guys. That was so embarrassing, but I did a boot camp where we had to do so many push-ups, and now I swear to God that holding up this super lightweight sweater, my arms are dying. Okay, sorry, get it together, Lil. All right, so you can note, I was talking about the high level of contrast. The high level of contrast is on the lighter white part of the sweater, which is above. The lower level of contrast is on the darker blue part of the sweater, which is below. One of the things that I would never do is switch this. So I would never have the darker and lower contrast section on top, and then the lower contrast section, and then the higher contrast section on the bottom. Why wouldn't I do that? First of all, I want more lightness and easy to read things closer to my face. That's part of it. Second of all, I would absolutely want to keep the ability for my eye to read the pattern moving down in this direction, right? So I'm gonna be able to have my eye hold on to something up top, and then if it kind of fades, I can see it because my eye has already started. So it's actually kind of an optics question, and I'm super, I think that this is one of the things that might be helpful for folks to think about, right? That you can move from high contrast to low contrast within a garment, but I think it's much harder to move from low contrast into high contrast. And even though it's just about like verticality and placement, it's also how our eyes read a garment, and it's almost like it really does impact how we understand patterns and can pull them out, right? It's like you get a handhold so you understand what's going on down here. I'm not saying it wouldn't be like possible or like very, very cool to do it the other way, but I wouldn't have made that choice. Does that make sense? All right, so that's the first one. Next, I thought we would spend some time with my twigs. Just one second, it's over here. Okay, so we've got twigs, and This is one where I played with so many different color combinations and yarn ideas. I knew that I wanted something that had enough contrast to read the pattern, obviously, but I also wanted it to feel really kind of soft and wearable. I didn't want anything that felt too graphic and highly contrasted. Some of the kind of inspiration that I was looking at in particular were projects that used a variegated yarn. So I knew I wanted at least one of the yarns to have some sort of change or variation in it. So that's what I did for the pink. So from far away, the pink looks fairly standard, but this light pink actually has a lot of movement in it, but you can still really see the expression of the colorwork pattern there. The place with the lowest contrast is actually the two colors that you might think of as being the most far apart. So that is this teal and the kind of terracotta color. If you were to look at those kind of in just a lineup, you might say those are the two most different colors, but putting them together actually creates the lowest contrast. And I actually think that's kind of a fun and interesting kind of thought experiment, and one of the things I really liked about it. The lighter green honestly has a higher contrast, even though chromatically it has more in common with the teal. So that's just one of the ways that you can really play with the color selection. The green also has some little subtle variance to it, and then the green and the white look very, very close together, but they're actually different colors. So this was one where it took a lot of trial and error, but also I think had one of the best outcomes because I was pretty explicit about how I was thinking about the contrasts and on the kind of lower contrast side of the spectrum. From lower contrast, let's go high. Let's go with this Poppity Pop Pop. It's gonna look really funny against the yellow. Boom. This is my Celeste sweater by Petite Knit. Sorry, I had a moment there. And this is a color combination that I pulled not straight from, but very closely from a picture of a catwalk outfit that was for fall, winter 2024, and it might have been for the row, I forget. I will put it down or you know what, I'll link to the episode where I talk about it, and you can even see in the thumbnail for that episode, I included the photo that kind of made me think of this color combination. So this is something that's really taken from another source, and I just really, really loved how the bright blue, navy, and orange were playing together, but I also knew I wanted to break those up with some neutrals. So I needed neutrals that would go with those three like strongest colors. So my neutrals are in some ways variations on the colors themselves. So there's three different colors of blue in this. We have the dark blue of the main color, we have the super poppy bright blue, and then we have the pale blue, which has turned really into one of the neutral colors of the sweater. The other neutral is this, I love this color so much. This is by Hello Stella. It's the morning color from the Pride and Prejudice collection. It's just like the perfect pale, pale, pale green, pink wash on a beige, and it plays really, really well as a neutral because it can pull out the colors around it really well. The orange pop also needed to go with something, and I went with the brown. So the brown and orange combination I think is also really strong and helps pull all of the other elements together. But this is probably not a color combination I would have necessarily dreamed up on my own. It's not like I had a bunch of skeins in my cabinet that I pulled out and threw on my bed, which we'll talk about the one that happened from that next. This was absolutely, I saw a photograph with a group of images or a group of colors in it, and I thought that is the kind of energy that I want, and then I went out and found things to help execute it. So we're going to talk a little bit about how those two directional pulls can work. So next up I will do the opposite way. I love this sweater so much. And I do get so much use out of it. So this is a sweater that, this is the sheep camp sweater, and I cast this on as, it was not planned. This was the same year that I was working on the tessellated pullover by Andrea Mowry for Rhinebeck, and it was just, it's such a delight and it's such a cool thing to make, but it also takes kind of forever. And I wanted an instant gratification project. I don't know if I was even particularly looking at making this sweater, but I knew I wanted a circular yoke colorwork sweater that I could just kind of really enjoy the process on. And I was pulling out yarn from my yarn cabinet, and I literally saw this beautiful, kind of almost a steel tone to the purple here. Our light is kind of fading a little bit, so it might be harder to see. There, that's better. This really kind of steel tone purple is the yak blend from Farmer's Daughter Fibers. And it just looked so beautiful next to this pale blue that it was really just a leftover from a hat that I made. And I knew that navy would kind of combine with them. Really, it was these two colors though, the blue variegated yarn and the purple, coming next to each other. And then I like put the navy on top, and it was like, that's it, that's the sweater. What's also interesting about this is the original pattern is actually a 2-color pattern. And so usually your main color would be where the blue, light blue I have here is, not the navy, but the light blue sections, if you were following the pattern, would actually be your main color. And this is where I think number of colors matters. I think 2-color color work is so powerful, and I'm thinking about another one I should have pulled to talk about that, but this is, all I'm saying is I'm not dissing 2-color color work at all, but I think adding the 3rd color here and then pulling it in, pulling this main color in with this stripe here, really changed the pattern in a way that for me was really exciting, and brought again those 3 colors into a story together. So that's one of those kind of serendipitous color combinations that I think are always really fun and surprising. And again, this was really, I think, the way to execute this. I don't think that this would have been as successful if this had been light blue, for example, right? Because it's pulling in the main color back into the color work itself. And that's what you'll see also in the Celeste pattern, right? We're making sure that this main color comes up in the yoke as well. And that creates not only like, visual cohesion, so your eye has a place to land and it's connecting these 2 sections, but I think it also creates a lot of harmony within the duality of 2-color color work there, because you get that 3rd heat, if you will. What should we do next? Oh, sorry, my notebook just fell. Let's go back to talking about low contrast. This is a sweater, I wear this all the time as like a kind of throw on. This is a fairly low contrast, purposefully low contrast colorwork sweater that this is the Azucena. And I did something kind of similar, except I knew this was because I needed a reason, or a way rather, to use this yellow brick road. This is all La Vie Anime's Corey worsted. And I love, obviously, green and pink together is kind of my jam. So this turquoisey green with the pale, dusty pink that has a lot of those gray guard hairs still in it. I think that is what makes this effective. So the 1x1 color work sections really are something to, again, for their little anchors for the eye to hold on to. So then even though you're not getting as much of the punchiness where those 3 colors are coming together, it's still discernible, right? Because you have the anchor of the 1x1 color work above. And I'm realizing that a lot of the language that I'm using is similar to the visual analysis language that I use in my day job. So that's something that we talk about a lot, is kind of the choreography of the eye. So how a composition, particularly if it's a two-dimensional painting, but also in sculpture as well, part of its job is to conduct your eye, right? So your eyes are moving. They're not static like viewfinders like on a camera, right? Your eye can actually process so much more information than like a digital camera or traditional light lens cameras can process quite a bit as well. But your eyes are such powerful, incredible forces. So you can actually contain so much more information visually than you might ever imagine. And one of the things that we talk a lot about in visual analysis work, in art history and aesthetics and contemporary art, is, again, how your eye moves throughout a canvas or a painting. So I realize that's something that I'm talking about in the context of color here. But again, it's a two-dimensional representational space. And so obviously there's going to be some crossover. Okay, this is a really fun one. And I have started wearing it a lot more. I know I said in my yearly roundup that I wasn't wearing it as much, and I like changed my tune. So this is my Seton sweater by Marie Wallin, and the Colorwork sections of this were so much fun to put together, and they were very different. I used a very different kind of technique to pull them together than I had for any previous project. And that's because I created a palette. So first I put together all of the colors I knew that I was going to want to use at some point. But I didn't make a decision about the layout of each section and what colors were going to live in each section until I was upon it. And that was it was kind of not my usual like grand plan. I see it and then I create it, which is a lot of the way that my creativity works sometimes. And it was really, really fun to experiment with. So that meant that when I cast on, I knew I wanted this bottom section, which is not in the pattern. This is a separate chart. But I knew that I wanted this section to have this white shock in the middle, and then do kind of a gradient up and down, which is a classic Fair Isle colorwork, stranded colorwork technique. So I created this palette, and I knew I was going to go from dark brown into white, and I was going to go from dark blue into light blue, and then back out again. And so once this was set, I moved on to the next section. A decision that I made, I wasn't sure when I cast on these first little maroon flecks. I wasn't sure if I was going to keep this color the same throughout, but as soon as I used it a second time, I was like, okay, that's going to be my constant, that borderland moment. I'll keep consistent throughout the piece. And so when I got to the next section, I looked back at my palette. I knew I didn't want to repeat any of the colors that had been in this section. I was going to use fresh ones here. And so I did that. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Then when we came back to the next section, I wanted to be sure to repeat something from down below, right? So I want the same colors that I've seen before to kind of keep moving the eye throughout and adding that consistency. And so I worked in that neutral here, and also the maroon and one of the blues. And then here it was really easy to say, okay, it's going to look the same, it's just going to be inverted. And then we get another repeat of the palette from the first cast on. And then up here on the same repeat, I'll do here so it's easier to see. This was really about making sure that I had something lighter closer to my face, just because I find that easier for me to wear and to style. Yeah, and this was a really fun thought experiment as well as actual like experience with the color and the knitting. Okay, should we do one more? I have a lot down here, but I know I've been talking for a long time. Let's do, well, we just talked about this last week, or not last week, oh my God. It feels like a year, but also a week, but it was actually last month. And so this was the gradient, and this was all pre-planned, and I put together tiny little balls of spin cycle that would create this gradient. So I thought about it, and first I wanted it to go from light pink into dark green and blue, into maroon, light pink, and then back out again. And so that was all a matter of kind of just winding up the little balls. And you know what, let's end with this guy. Okay, so this is a raglan colorwork sweater by Joji Locatelli called Instant Crush. I love, love, love this gauge for colorwork, and this is a part where I really did want to go super graphic, right? The motif is super bold, and I wanted the colors to have heightened contrast, particularly because some of the motifs cross between two different colors, right? So we have this shape here, which goes both in the brown and the dark blue sections, and there's nothing in the middle. In the middle, the two sections meet, and they look lower contrast, so we know we need that third element will be high contrast with both the above and below sections. And that's something that I thought a lot about when picking out this color combination. So that these two are, the gold and the light blue are kind of similar, and then the dark blue and the dark brown are also similar. So that way I knew I was going to be able to play with those together, creating both high and low contrast sections where there would be a high contrast element that would be able to cross in between two lower contrast elements, if that makes sense. So those are just like kind of some of the thoughts. And I did the same cheat code on this, where I added in one of the lighter colors on the top edge. Again, just because I don't know if it's my complexion, or maybe somebody like told me at some point, some event photographer I think at some point might have even said, like, you know, the more light is closer to your face, at least for me, I feel like more, I don't know, like the garment is doing its job, right? So it's kind of lifting things up. It's lifting more light and space onto our faces and the way that we communicate. So I was going to end on this, and I think that's right. I did bring my tessellated because I think it is kind of interesting to talk about a different type of color work where we're not creating a either a really graphic visual impact, or, you know, with some of these we're literally trying to mimic designs that we see in nature, right? So branches or flowers, we're creating actual pictures of representational pictures, right? Things that are supposed to look like something in the real world. Obviously that's not always the case. Sometimes these shapes are much more abstracted. And my favorite is when you combine the more abstracted elements and graphic elements with the botanical or the representational elements. I think that's kind of my favorite. But sometimes when we are doing colorwork pairings, we're creating a fabric, right? And I think that's what makes this different. The color combination is much less about how it will represent something and be able to be read, but more about creating a field. So in this case, we have the main color as this darker navy, and then what happens, because one of the three colors is the fluffy yarn, so there's that halo on it, that light blue halo has really combined with the darker blue, and that creates its own kind of background field. And then on top of that, we have the integration of the color changing yarn, which becomes and that color changing aspect becomes much more subtle because the combination of the dark and the light yarn is consistent, and so our eye is only changing one out of three things, right? So only one out of the three things making up this composition is shifting or changing. And in that way, I think if I were going to do this over again, I might pick a color changing yarn that actually had more variation to it. I'm usually tempted, and not tempted, but I'm usually delighted when one of these color changing yarns has a very subtle gradation, where it's kind of hard to see the change, where you can go from, in this case, like it's so hard to see, a super, super, super bright yellow into the cool blues, and then the pinks, and then back to yellow at the bottom. That change is like slow and long and luxurious. But for what happens, and again, this isn't a better, or this is not a bad or good thing, but that change becomes so much more subtle when it's integrated into an all-over fabric, where again, it's just one thing changing out of three. Obviously, if we were knitting the color changing yarn totally on its own, it'd be very easy to see that change, right? It would happen kind of all at once. Our eye would be able to track it much more easily. But because the color change is broken up with this consistency of the other two colors, it really softens the entire changing effect. And again, if I were to do it again, I might look into a skein of spin cycle that had a much kind of bigger shift in color from one end to the other, because I think it would be very cool to see a little bit more significant shift or significant change. I realized I was talking really fast, especially at the end there. I think it's because part of me is a little nervous to post this part. I don't know if you folks will like it. But this is just one of the ways I think about, this is like the background. What you guys usually see is much more just, you know, here, I think for some of them, like, yeah, here's a story behind how I chose this yarn. But I didn't realize until I started working on this Colorwork design, like just maybe how specific I get, how like totally nerdy part of this is. And so, yeah, I just thought it might be kind of fun to peek a little bit behind the curtain, or, you know, inside a mad woman's brain. But this is, yeah, just how I think about it and process that selection. It also is, I think, connected to one of my favorite things about the knitting practice, which is the kind of how it empowers people to kind of make something completely their own. It's such a collaborative process, right? You have your yarn, you have the designer, and then you have yourself and your own creativity. And out of those three things, you're really making something entirely new that's never existed before. And that, oh, you know what? This is pretty elegant, actually. That connects me back to talking about my test knit and the Curator sweater. That is being on one side of that, on a different side of that, and watching these amazing, amazing knitters create their own individual expressions, and like feeling like I was supporting their creativity is actually the best part of this. And I want to do more stuff like that. I don't know what that looks like, but I truly believe that our creative expressions are a way of, like, it's honestly, it's like a kind of resistance. It's a way of being present and ourselves, and acknowledging how unique our own visions are, and at the same time connecting with other people. So I don't know what the world has in store for me, but I think my biggest learning from the test knit, besides that I love it, that I loved it, and that I grew so much as a knitter and a designer, that kind of, you know, higher level understanding of myself is that I want to be someone who supports other people in their creativity. And I'm just going to keep looking for more ways to do that. I hope our talk today supported you in your creative adventures, no matter where they are or what where they take you, or what they are. I'm so delighted that you chose to share some time with me today. And if you haven't already and you're still watching, could you please go just give a little bit of love to the Curator Sweater pattern, and let me know in the comments if you want to join our Cal. I think now I'm really into it. I also think I might do another one just like this, maybe in white. What do we think? White lacy tee? What am I? And I'm loving this, actually, this shoulder. I just can't. Sorry, I'm like getting into myself, but I don't really care. I think the size 2 shoulder for me might be where I go again, even with my next full length one, and then the size 2 bust darts. Yeah, it just makes me feel confident, you know, like I know this fits, but I have still a little bit of room. Okay, so if you haven't yet, please, again, check out the pattern, give it a heart, and let me know in the comments if you are interested in a Curator Sweater Cal. I am so glad you're here. Keep, please, putting yourself out into the world with all of your creative endeavors, and let me know how I could maybe support you in your creativity. I am just kind of landed on that as I was talking, and now I feel like making beautiful things together is such an important part of what we do, and you know, I just want to keep helping others do that too. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.